Hello. This is Jonathan, and you're listening to the Johnny Talks podcast, the place where we help you achieve your financial goals. Hola, amigos. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. And if you're a new listener to the show, special warm welcome to you. I really appreciate you tuning into the show. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. I appreciate it even more. In today's episode, we will speak to my friend Kat from the Wildly Wealthy Life podcast. Kat is from the Philippines and came 15 years ago to the US, Los Angeles, to pursue her artist dream career. Yeah, she's indeed a full-on artist. She dances, she teaches piano, and is an aerialist. A bit hard to pronounce, so forgive me if I butcher this. Anyway, despite the variable and unpredictable income that comes with such a career, she has still managed to get out of debt, purchase a multifamily home with her husband, and she's living her wildly wealthy life. Kat will share her inspiring story on how she started her real estate investing journey with an irregular source of income, how she budgets, and how her background has played an important part in how she manages her finances. And talking about her background, we will also discuss a few cultural money differences she faced when coming to the US. This episode is for you if you feel you're stagnating with your finances and want to get moving towards larger goals. And don't be fooled, the tone will seem light and conversational, but the key takeaways will be solid. So let's not wait a minute longer, and let's jump right into it. Hello, Kat. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. How about you?
Yes, I'm doing fine. Excited to have you on the show. Nice to have you. And because I'm calling you and you're now in Los Angeles, if I'm correct.
Yes, I am. Sunny Los Angeles.
Fantastic. Well, here it's sunny Luxembourg. It does not sound as sexy, but it's quite a good place to be right now. Even with the lockdown, it's still nice. And the weather it has been fantastic for 1 month. So grateful to be here and healthy. And Kat, you have an atypical profile. I mean, you have an artist background. You're a dancer. You're a piano teacher. You are, I don't know how to pronounce this correctly in English, so I will try. Aerialist?
Aerialist. Yeah,
aerialist. Voilà.
Yep.
And next to that, you're also an experienced real estate investor. So it's quite an interesting profile, because usually people that I have here on the show or people I talk to in the community, because we met through FinCon, are people in the corporate world or people that have worked with finance, and then they get into investing in personal finance, and then we move on from there. But here, I mean, you're really an artist. I mean, you're a piano teacher. I've seen your videos. It's quite impressive.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm really curious to hear a bit more about this. So can you tell us a bit more what you do? Because I just scratched the surface. What are you actually doing these days?
Yeah, so wow, these days actually I have really been focused on teaching piano online. It's been awesome. But before that, I just really grew up having such a passion for the arts. Like I could probably remember back to when I was 6 years old. I knew that I wanted to be a dancer. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I had lived in the Philippines back then. I was born and raised there. And then I knew that at some point I will move to either New York or Los Angeles to pursue a career in dance. I don't know what it was. You know how some people just wake up and they're born and they kind of just know what they want to do. That's kind of like how it was with me, and I call it luck or whatever, but I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so when I actually graduated from college in the Philippines, I moved straight to LA and I pursued a dance career. And so I have worked as a dancer and then also ventured into being an aerialist, because being in LA and then coming from the Philippines, you realize that in the Philippines, because I came from a very small town, you're the big fish in the small pond over there. And then you move to Los Angeles and you become the small fish in a much, much bigger pond. And so when I moved out to LA, I realized that being a dancer is great, but I have to add a couple of skills to my repertoire, and so I explored aerial because I knew that it's something that it develops your strength because you're in the air and you're holding on and you're doing tricks in the air. And two, if you have that skill, you have a little bit more of an advantage when you look for jobs. And so knowing that, I dived deep into aerial, and then I started working as an an aerialist as well. And so that's kind of been, my background. And then I love being musical. I love singing. I love playing the piano. And that's something that I've just done growing up. And so that's kind of part of my skill set too. And then I think that the thing that really drove me to also just exploring financial independence and exploring real estate is because growing up we just didn't have much, and I always saw my parents struggle, with money. And actually, my parents had to leave when I was 7 years old, and my brother was barely even a year old. And my mom and my dad left the Philippines to go to the States to try to get a better job so that they could send us money at home. And so, growing up and seeing that, I just knew that that's not something that I want to do. I still want to pursue the arts, but in the back of my mind, I always knew that personal finance is very, very important. So that's kind of how I stumbled into really studying personal finance and going into real estate.
Okay, that's quite good. And then you mentioned to me before the show that, okay, well, you're an artist, you're a dancer, you're aerialist. Yeah, I managed. And you give piano lessons. I mean, it does not sound like an investment banker making hundreds of thousands of dollars, if I may say so. So how do you manage then to enter the wonderful world of the real estate investing?
Yeah, so I'd say that came with a lot of teamwork with my husband. I'd say I'm really blessed to have an amazing husband who has supported my passion for the arts. He works as an admissions counselor for a college, but when he started, he was, in the base level position, but he is such a hard worker and just also really great with people. And every single time there's promotion at work, he was always able to basically receive the promotion. Like in about maybe I'd say 2-3 years time, his salary really grew double, and we were living for the most part mostly on his salary, and all of my income was the supplement income, because my income can come whenever it wants to come, whenever I get a job, And so it came from teamwork between him and I. That's one. Communication, that the understanding that I am sorry that I am not bringing a lot of money into our marriage, but I do bring other value, and so it's just really that teamwork. And then he never shamed me for not making enough. He never pressured me into leaving my passion for the arts because it's not making enough money. Instead, we just worked together and we said, well, this is what you make. Let's figure out a way to make sure that we really budget well. And then we also had debt. It was actually more of his debt because he had a lot of student loan and consumer debt. Coming from the Philippines, I actually grew up not using credit cards. I just knew that if you don't have cash, you don't buy it. And so when I went to the States, it was kind of the same thing for me, where if you don't have cash, you don't buy it. So I didn't really fall into that whole thing. So when we got married, I actually accumulated a little bit, but just because when I went to the States, it was really fresh for me as far as I didn't have income, it was just really starting from scratch, right? So then we had to tackle the debt first. And so a lot of it just had to boil down with, this is the solid money income that we're having every month. And whatever we have from me as an artist, let's make sure that all just goes to the debt. And we just literally tackle it, and just it became a snowball effect until we basically paid off all our debt, everything from consumer debt to the car debt and student loan, and then we just have our mortgage debt now, and that's kind of like how we did our finances. Just a lot of teamwork and communication.
And before we move on to the real estate, I'm just curious because okay, you have your income, which is not a regular; it's not a regular paycheck that comes with a fixed amount every month. So I guess you're paid by gigs or by events. How does that work?
Yeah, it's basically paid by sometimes it's paid by gigs or by event. Sometimes you get really lucky and you get like an awesome job at a park. Like here in California, we have, Disneyland. I actually worked at Disney California Adventure. It's the park right across Disneyland. And they had a show there called Aladdin, a musical spectacular, and it was a 13-year show. So it went on for 13 years, and it's a show that goes on every single day, 7 days a week, 5 shows a day. And so they need a pretty big cast to be able to run that show consistently. I auditioned for that show. I got, accepted, and I was able to do that job for a couple of years. And I had like a stable, gig. So sometimes you have those stable jobs. You're basically employed regularly.
Yeah.
Obviously, because there's a lot of people in the cast. Sometimes you get 1 day a week, sometimes you get 2 days a week or 5 days a week. It just kind of depends, right?
Hmm.
But it is great because it's regular. You can count on it every single week. You know that you have a job at least every single week, even if you work once a week. So there's that. And then I also was able to work for Marvel, which is a stunt show. It was a touring stunt show. So that went on for a year. And that was also a regular paying job. So it all depends. It really depends on what gigs you have. Sometimes they're long-term contracts and sometimes they're like a day. I go and work in an event and get paid. Sometimes it's 250, sometimes it's 500, sometimes it's 2000. It's
Oh, yeah.
literally
Okay.
such a different range of what you get paid.
Okay. And over time, have you tried to or managed to get a more regular form of income, or is it still like this that you never know at the start of the month how much you will make?
It is still like this. I mean,
Okay.
I get, again, like I get some regular gigs, like
Hmm.
the Disney was regular, and then the Marvel was regular for a year, which was great. And then it was also a tour though. So I was away, I was away for a year. We went from city to city every single week, that hotel living every single week and moving from city to city. And then, you come home and then you have to restart again because, in LA, out of sight, out of mind. So you kind of come home and you're like, oh, goodness, all right, let's start our engines again and be home and figure out auditions and all that. So it's still that way. It's just what it is until you book like a regular show that goes on for seasons. Then great.
Hmm. I see, I see. But now, next to that, to this variable income, you have managed to secure a few properties with your husband. And I understand that you both became real estate investors. So that
Hmm.
maybe is the stability provider while you still can live your passion.
Yeah, definitely. It's been such a blessing to have the properties because it really, again, it's that snowball thing. I don't think we could be in this place if we
Hmm.
didn't tackle the debt first.
Yeah.
And that was important. That was an important piece to get your credit score up, to not be worried about now putting your money into credit card debts, and to actually have money to be able to save up. So the first thing actually that we did was we bought a house here in LA. And I know it's crazy because it's so expensive out here
Yeah.
in LA, but the fun thing about I think for us, for both my husband and I would say the number one thing for us is we just don't think that impossible is a word. We really believe that everything is possible. Like it's truly like what we believe to the core is that everything is possible. And so when we come up against an obstacle, we just look at it and we're like, well, what's the way around it?
Hmm. Yeah.
What's another way to look at it? That's kind of just how we've always approached life. And so when we got done with paying our debt, we knew we wanted to purchase a home. And actually, it also came after kind of like a 4 month gig in Korea. I lived in Korea and I performed in Korea for 4 months. And while I was there, I had kind of been running this after school dance program business for
Hmm.
years, and I had grown it. And because of that, when I went to Korea and I worked as an artist in Korea, my business that was in LA that was arts related was still thriving. So I actually, for that short period of time, for 4 months, I was earning double income. So that was
Oh,
amazing.
great.
I was getting paid as an artist, and then my my dance program business was thriving in LA, and it was being managed by the team that I had put together. And during that time, we said, okay, let's really go hardcore. Let's save all the money that we can save. And then when I came home from Korea, that's when we bought a house. This was in 2012.
Hmm.
But also, and this was really funny how even at that time, we didn't really study anything real estate. We literally went into buying this house just with this gut feeling that we think it's right to buy a multi-property home. So we decided when we buy our first home in LA, it's not going to be a regular home that's going to be like, oh, it's your first home and it's going to be your dream home. No, we knew that this was going to be an investment right off the bat. So we purchased a multi-property home that has rentals in the back of the main home. So that's how we actually afforded this house in LA, because the income that was coming in from the units behind us, qualified us or helped us kind of like have the means to be able to pay for it, because our mortgage here is ridiculous. It's a little over $4,000 a month.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's crazy. But we actually live mortgage free because of the rentals that are paying for the property itself behind us. And my brother also lives with me, and my brother's best friend lives with us. So we're also house hacking. So all that combined, we're mortgage free, and because of that, we're not paying $4,000 every single month out of our own pocket. So we kind of acted like we are, and we put that into the savings again. And then we purchased more properties in we upstate New York, because my husband is from upstate New York. So then we have a couple more rentals in upstate New York. That's kind of how we tackle that.
Wow, that's excellent. I mean, $4,000, it already sounds a lot to me.
Yeah.
And then actually you live for free, and then that money you just put, I mean, you pay off your mortgage, and then you buy other properties with it. So that's excellent.
Yeah, it's like, again, just the snowball effect, and so and not I think the other thing is not having a lifestyle increase with your cost of living.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's inflation and all that stuff, but to really figure out what you value, and to not be like when I had the double income, right? I lived in Korea, I was getting paid the salary for my performing there, and then I was still having my salary from my business. I could have easily said, wow, I have two incomes. This is great. Let me just live my life now. No, like we didn't do that. We realized that this is a great opportunity to be able to stack away some Benjamins, some money, because we don't know when that's going to happen again. As a performer, am I going to have that opportunity again? I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's the thing.
Yeah, I see. And then I have a question because, okay, before the real estate part, you were in debt, as you mentioned,
Hmm.
and then to pay that off, okay, you used your salary. But then I was wondering about any frugal habits or cutting down on expenses. What measures did you take with regards to regular payments or grocery shopping? Any tips where probably the readers can maybe say, well, look, I can save here and there some money. Maybe they're not in debt, but at least maybe these habits can help them save some money.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think that to start with, this was like years ago, when we were trying to tackle our debt. The one thing that we kind of just did, which is pretty much the regular thing that most people do, is just cut down on the food. That was the biggest thing, because especially here in LA, there's so much temptation to eat outside all the time, because there's so many great restaurants, and it's fun. Like, there's just so much stuff to do here in LA. And so I think that that's the biggest thing that we did was we made sure that we, lived our life, like had fun, like here and there, and explored. But on a day-to-day living, it was cooking at home day to day. Like,
Okay.
we did not eat out. Like, it was, especially that first 2-3 years that we were like really going, pushing forward with paying the debt. It was, and for newlyweds, that's not easy to do, because when you're newlyweds, you're still, in that exciting part of like, hey, let's do something all the time because we're
Yeah, you want to
newlyweds.
travel, you want to go to the restaurant, share experiences, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
But we just, again, I think it's just a matter of we we just knew our vision as far as hey, we want to have a better life, like not just right now, but like really for long term. We live for longevity. Like that's what it is. We're always looking at longevity. It's not for the short-term gain and short-term happiness. It's really, but it's a balance. Again, you want to make sure that you're also living now, but also knowing that the future is gonna happen. It's gonna be here soon. So you want to make sure you're also looking out for your future.
And a little bit boring question, but I want to ask it. Did you guys set up a budget or anything? Because to me, budget is boring, but I think it's part of a good personal finance habit.
Oh yeah, definitely. There was a budget. My
Yeah.
husband is actually not the money guy. He's more of the spender.
Okay.
And so that was also a challenge actually for us. We had to come together because he is the spender and I'm the saver, and he actually doesn't really look at the budget that much. He just knows that, hey, I'm budgeting, and and then I just tell him, hey, this is how much you have for this month to spend, and he's like, okay, and he doesn't really he's like, okay, cool, that's great. That's kind of how we did it. He said that it helps when he sees it. But for the most part, even if he doesn't see it, and I just tell him that this is, what he's got for the week or for the month, he doesn't really question it. He's just like, okay, he just trusts me,
Yeah, I see. Okay, very cool. And yeah, so this is how then you manage to get out of debt, start on investing the apartments in the properties. Great job on the house hacking. So what are your financial goals now? Because you're in this phase where you accumulate real estate properties.
Mhm.
What is the end goal, or what is your current strategy right now with regards to your finances?
Well, actually, one of our biggest dreams, because I had gone to New Zealand one time, and I went to this tree adventure park, and it was the most fun adventure park I've ever gone to, where you basically you monkey around from tree to tree. And
Hmm.
at that moment, I had this thing where I'm like, I want to own something like this in LA, where I have like a forest adventure in LA. And and so we have this really big, this is our like high and lofty big goal. But again, like we're like, it's big, but guess what, like I don't think anything is impossible, so how about we figure out how to do that?
Yeah.
But if you want to know like what our biggest like dream is, it's basically we want to own this big tree adventure park that people can go to and have fun. And then in it is a dog park and a cat cafe. And then there's a part where it's like a big outdoor amphitheater that we people can rent out to do concerts and events and dance performances and aerial performances. That's kind of like our big dream. So that's what we're working towards, is to have something like that people can enjoy, because we just really love bringing the community together, bring people together, and like having something fun for them to do. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the big thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it sounds like all your passions all bundled up together in one real estate project. So it's everything together.
Exactly. I'm like, you know what? This is a way for us to develop like a real estate project. And then there's a theater for performances. And then there's a cat cafe and a dog park. And then there's adventure. I'm like, what could be better than this? Yeah, that's exactly it.
Wow, wow. Well, it sounds absolutely exciting. And then one thing that also sounds interesting to me is you mentioned it before. I mean, you grew up in the Philippines.
Hmm.
Okay, you married to an American, to Lee, who is American. And I'm also curious about your impression. I don't know how it works in the Philippines with money, how the perception is, or the culture around money is. But then
Hmm.
I'm sure you had a shock, or there were probably some tough discussions around money in the US, or some observations that you made. So I'm curious to hear about your experience here.
Yeah, probably the biggest shock for me was the credit card. I was really like, what is this piece of plastic? You mean you can swipe it and not have to worry about paying? Like actually paying? That was a huge shock for me, because again, like coming from a not very well off family where my parents even had to leave us, so that they could find a better future somewhere else. The value of money for me growing up was, number one, you have to save it because
Hmm.
you don't know when you're going to get income again. And number two, you just don't buy anything you cannot afford ever. Like you don't. Like if you don't have the cash for it, you don't. So that was to me culturally the biggest shock was the credit cards when I went here. Right now, it's very different now in the Philippine culture. Like we're so influenced by the Western culture over there now that I'm sure that there's credit cards there now and everything. But in my time, it was very different. So that was a big shock. The other shock was not really like a shock, but just a little bit of a difference in culture. I'm not saying that in with the American families that they don't care about their parents. They do, of course, they do, but it's a lot more here in America, it's a lot more common that when your parents are of old age, that you send them to a like a assisted living facility,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not in the case for us in the Philippines. Like if your parents are old, you house them yourself and you take care of them until their dying age,
Mm-hmm.
their
Yeah.
dying days. So that was also different for me because again, just again difference in culture. And actually right now my aunt lives with us. She is in her late 60s. She's still very active. Actually, she's very, very healthy, which is we're blessed to have her very healthy. But my aunt lives with us. My brother lives with us. My brother's best friend lives with us. And that's pretty much what Philippine culture is. We just all live in the same house. And that's not necessarily what American culture is. People really want to be on their own. That's the difference.
Yeah. Any other money behaviors or habits or things that you've seen that are like totally different than in the Philippines?
I would say that there's not I'm not saying that everybody is like this, but there's this little bit of a sense of entitlement with
Mm-hmm.
the way people spend their money here in the States, and I think that my husband had that a little bit when we first met. It was more of like, well, it's my money, like I'm gonna spend it, it's like you have no, because it's mine, like, and Philippine wise, the way we look at money and how to spend it is, it's my money, I made it, but I'm spending this to help family out. It's always been like that, and again, there's pros and cons to that because sometimes like with us, it's like it's almost so like a martyr. How do you say that word? Martyr, martyr.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like you're like really like giving up your desires in life so that you could like feed your family and make sure that your family comes first. So again, there's good and bad to it. I think you have to find the balance because you want to take care of your needs too, and that's actually something that I've had to learn, is that I also need to take care of my needs and not just think of my family all the time, which is, again, we don't have kids yet, but like I'm thinking like about my brother and my aunt and, you know, and make sure that they're taken care of and roof over their heads. And yes, they pay us rent and whatnot, but still, like even with groceries, that's another thing. We do groceries here and it's for everybody. There's 5 people living in this house and it's for everybody. And in a regular American household, if they're not part of the family and maybe they live with you, it's to each their own, and so yeah, that's kind of like the differences is the sense of entitlement versus the sense of like what I make is to help out my family.
Yeah, I see. And I think for me, from the outside, what it looks like is, okay, in Europe, at least I'm from Belgium, I live in Luxembourg, but it's all this credit card thing. To me, that's like typically American. I mean, people do have credit card issues here as well, but it's not as big. I never heard stories about some people. Oh yeah, I got 30,000 euros in credit card debt on
Mm-hmm.
on private consumptions. I mean, maybe student loans and still, okay, student loans, that's a part, but I mean, for private consumptions, I never hear these stories here and never seen it in the newspapers or anything. So I only hear it from the community or the friends or whatever articles or personal finance blogs. So this is something we really don't have. And when I grew up, for example, okay, credit cards are not evil, but I was always told to be careful because it's money you need to pay back. So it's not just
Yeah.
you go to the store, you buy a pair of shoes, and that's it. No, you need to pay it back in a way or another. So from that perspective, that was quite good. And then, yeah, one other thing is that this family thing, I think it's the same. I mean, to each their own. And my parents are in their 60s, but okay, for now they're healthy, so it's okay. But later, I don't know if we will send them to this kind of retirement place or if we'll keep them home. I don't know, but so we will see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just different,
Yeah.
culturally, and not that the other one is wrong and the other one is right. It's just very different. That's all, and you kind of just have to figure out what do you value, and what's right for you may not necessarily be right for someone else. So,
Yeah, of
yeah.
course, of course. Yeah, very good. And then, Kat, you just launched your podcast yourself, actually.
Yeah, we did. My husband and I co-host the podcast.
Yeah, so it's called Widely Wealthy Life. I've listened
Yes,
to a
it
few
is.
episodes. It's quite cool, energetic. And yeah, what's your mission with that?
Our mission is really to we realize that we've had amazing experience with our own financial story.
Mm-hmm.
We've had our struggles, we've had our wins, and our wins are amazing. As far as like we're concerned, like we felt like we started with nothing. We felt like we started from scratch, and so for us, because we have studied this and we have surrounded ourselves with making sure that we are educated financially, and then we've put it into application. So it's not all just about, knowledge, but we actually put it in application, which means that we have experiential wisdom on
Mm-hmm.
things.
Yeah.
We realize that we have a voice in this space. And so we want to be able to exercise that voice, one, but two, to really explore. We realize, for me as a performer, I love stories. I just love storytelling. And so if I can get people to tell their stories of their inspiring stories that how they started and where they are now, and also a little bit of tips on what got them there.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, we really love tying it into intentional generosity, because my husband and I have always lived with the premise that if your currency is giving, it really does come back. And you don't give because you know it's going to come back. You just give because it's a beautiful thing to do, and the best thing that you get out of it is joy. Like, to be honest, even if it's not financial gain that you get back from giving, the best thing that you get from it is, one, joy, and number two, the ability to be able to change people's lives, and in small ways and sometimes in big ways. And so that's our message with our whole podcast is pursue financial independence, but have intentional generosity that goes along with it, because you will go further and you'll see that your efforts in getting financially independent actually multiplies. It becomes this ripple effect where people's lives get affected in a massively beautiful way, and then they will affect other people's lives. So that's kind of like the goal of this podcast, is to spread that message. And then hopefully, as we develop our voice in this space, that we gain credibility with us being investors and all these things, because we're venturing out to be note investors as well. And actually during this time, I'm partnering with another gal. It's me and this other woman from Oregon, and we're opening a note business together. And so as we have this space, we're hoping that it helps us build credibility, and hopefully it will open up for other people who will want to partner with us in our note investing venture.
Well, that's great. That's
Yeah.
a lot going on.
Yeah, it's so much.
But that's great. That's great. And just one thing, just that comes in, your real estate ventures, your personal finance journey. Where did you get your tips, your resources from? Was it finance blogs, books, podcasts? How did you get started? I mean, where did you read information?
So in the beginning, it was honestly just this natural inclination to it. Like in the beginning, I just knew that, again, as I said, like some people are just born with this innate thing, and then some people are not, and they have to develop it, you know. So as for me, I was born with this innate thing for performing, and then I was born with this innate thing for personal finance and make sure that our finances are set straight. So that's the beginning part. However, obviously, education and getting influenced by awesome people in this space really help build your momentum and help propel you forward. So the very first one that I got exposed to was actually Dave Ramsey. When I learned about his steps to financial independence, we looked at that and we're like, we love this, we resonate with this. So we kind of followed some of those steps, and then you have to realize that some people have their way, and then you get exposed to other people and you're like, wait, I like that guy too. How about if we merge something together? And I love his, perspective on that, because Dave Ramsey is like a big make sure you pay everything in cash guy. And I'm like, but I love credit card points because I get to travel for free,
Yeah.
So it's like mixing things that you learn from people and then figuring out what's right for you. So we started with Dave Ramsey, and then now we use credit cards for everything. We pay it off every single month, but we use credit cards for everything. And so far, in the last 3 years, we actually haven't had to pay for any travel because it's just been credit card points, so that's great.
Yeah, that's another thing from the US is that, you get all this the credit card points to travel everywhere. I mean, here it takes ages to reach that status, but okay, it's a different systems and everything, but
Yep. Yeah, it's very different.
you hear those guys, I went to the conference, I just use my points and I traveled business because this and that. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I know. It sucks that it's not as the same in other places for sure. I don't think it's the same in the Philippines either. Like credit card.
But then then the mortgage rates. I mean, I don't know what's your mortgage rate, but for example, mine is 2%. So it all balances out, I guess.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Again, there's always pros and cons, right?
Exactly.
Like everywhere, and you just make the best of really what is your environment and what's like where you're born. Like again, you make the best out of it.
Absolutely. Well, Kat, I think this was a great, energetic episode. I really like it. And before we close, we always have our 3 quick fire questions.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So, Kat, my first question to you is, what has been your best investment so far?
My best investment so far has been a mentorship program that I signed up for from a real estate event that I went to. I was very, very, very hesitant because it was a huge amount of investment for me. But I have this thing where if you're fearing something, but you know that it's going to be good, but you're just afraid, I think that you should lean into your fear. If you have this gut feeling that it's like, it's going to be good, I'm just afraid because it seems too much. It seems a lot of money. Just jump, just go for it because it's going to be good. And it has proven to be good. It's a real estate mastermind group and mentorship that I have with this woman named Monique Hom. And from doing that, it was actually just last October, it has literally exponentially like grown my network with people. I've met so many amazing people that has really given me a good amount of return as far as relationships, and I know financially too. Like it's not there yet, as far as like really looking at the numbers, but I know that in about 2 years' time, I'm gonna get that money back like easily. So that's a huge investment that I think was one of the best investments I've made.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, maybe for the listeners, maybe they will not have an opportunity to attend this kind of mentorships, but maybe there can be other opportunities like attending a conference, meeting people, like-minded people, and maybe it can be a lot of things where you need to put some money up front.
Yep.
And it might turn out to be a great opportunity. Maybe it's launching a business. Maybe it's, I don't know, I don't have any other ideas now in mind, but there could be this kind of opportunity. So so have a look around, and if inside yourself you feel it can be good, and if it makes sense, well, then try it, go for it. Worst case, okay, you lost a bit of money, but But normally, if it's good for you, you will get connections, you will get maybe some work, some side gig, some return on your investment. And that's what you
Yep.
should look for. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, very cool. Next question that is about books. So what is the best book you can recommend to anyone? And it does not need to be financial.
My most favorite book is this book called Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. It's just such an awesome book on basically it's about a woman who grew up an orphan. Her dad left her, but for as far as she could remember, she just loved her dad and she wanted so much approval from her dad, but her dad disowned her. And then her mom died later, and at a young age, she was actually sold to a rich family that by her uncle, who basically used her in prostitution. So she grew up a prostitute, and the only thing she knew was to do that. And then there was a guy that met her and really like loved her, like really, really loved her. And she kept running away and kept going back to prostitution. But this guy was just patient and just forgave her every single time. And just his whole heart of like forgiving her, like over and over again, turned her around and like made her realize that there's a different kind of life. And so, yeah, it's Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. It's my favorite book.
Okay, excellent. I'll link it all up in the show notes. I'll look it up and I'll link it. It sounds like a great story. So yeah, so probably there will be listeners wanting to read it or know more about it. And then the last question, Kat, what is the best purchase you've made for under $100?
So if I could buy something that's going to give me like so much joy, like a whole lot of joy, I guess my question is, because I maybe I misread this question, but I did not do this personally. But if I were to buy something under $100 that I think would be the best purchase ever, is to adopt a cat from a shelter. It's like about $55 to adopt a cat at a shelter. So it's under $100, and it will give you enormous amounts of joy for a very, very, very long time. So that would be my best purchase for under $100.
No, that's great. Yeah.
It's an investment in yourself because you give yourself a lot of joy. And when you have a lot of joy, you get to live life better. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. I really like that. $55 and to make you happy. I mean, there's not many more other options to get happy for such a low amount.
Yep. And you make their life happy. You make a cat's life happy. So there you go.
Perfect. I really like that. So Kat, I think the listeners will want to hear more about you. So where can they find you?
Wow. Well, they can find me two ways. I am on wildlywealthylife.com. That's our podcast. And if you just want to know more about me as a piano teacher, I am on mypianobench.com. So on mypianobench.com. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm also on Instagram. If you go to Wildly Wealthy Life, all the information is on there. And that's where you can find me.
Okay, excellent. Well, Kat, thank you so much. I really liked your story coming from the Philippines, moving to LA to live your dreams as a dancer, as an artist, and working your way up through real estate to open your adventure park.
Someday soon, yes.
Yeah, it was quite cool. I really enjoyed it, and I think there's a lot of value in this episode that people can get inspired from. And what I really liked is that you say, well, a bit like in the book of Marie Forleo, it says, well, everything is figure outable. So
it really is. I love that. Yes. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, I really liked it and the book. And I really like that actually you just mentioned the same. So nothing is impossible, or you said. And so I think that's, I don't know if nothing is really impossible, but at least if you set your heart and your passion and you work towards your goal, you can reach a lot more than you think.
I agree. Thank you so much. Voilà. I so enjoyed my time with you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, and I'll speak to you soon. I had a pleasant time chatting with Kat, and really enjoyed it. So I hope you enjoyed it as well, and that you learned something from it. And although as I said in the intro, although the tone was a bit light and conversational and fun, I think the key takeaways are solid. So let's get into it. Number 1, develop special skills to stand out. I mean, Kat knew she needed to add skills next to her dancer abilities when moving to LA, so she learned all about being an aerialist. Next, if you wish to pursue an artistic career, well, be prepared for irregular income, and if and when extra money comes in, do not give in to lifestyle creep. So that means increasing expenses as your money grows. Stay focused on your goal. In the case of Kat and her husband Lee, it was to buy real estate. Number 3, teamwork and communication is what helped her couple get through debt and start their successful financial journey. Next, Kat brought us with some Filipino wisdom, I would say. If you do not have cash, do not buy it. You will avoid a ton of financial trouble that way. On the cultural difference note, I would say that, well, you do not choose where you're born. Money habits and system will vary. So just make the best out of your situation. And I will just end up this episode with Kat's motto, which I really liked. Nothing is impossible. And if there's a problem, think, what's the way around it? So that was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you subscribe in Apple Podcast. And of course, please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or feedback. Send me an email, john@johnnytalks.com, or connect through social media at Johnny Talks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And amigos, once more, thanks so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.